Welcome to the Ordinary Doula Podcast with Angie Rosier, hosted by Birth Learning, where we help prepare folks for labor and birth with expertise coming from 20 years of experience in a busy doula practice, helping thousands of people prepare for labor, providing essential knowledge and tools for positive and empowering birth experiences.
Hello, this is Angie Rosier. I'm your host for the Ordinary Doula Podcast, which is sponsored by Birth Learning. Thanks for being here today. At this time of year, I want to share a story that is very meaningful to me. And this story, I'll just forewarn you, has some really bitter and some really sweet parts. It's a bittersweet story from my career. I think many doulas have these stories of tragedy and triumph and loss and gain. And so I'm going to share a story that's near and dear to my heart. So this story occurred about a year ago. There's different parts to this story, as you will discover. And so it's really got me thinking about that right now, being that we're between Christmas and New Year's. So last year I had a client. It was actually I was working on it with a co-doula. It wasn't even my primary client, but who was due in February. And in December, on December 21st, it was discovered that her blood pressure was too high to remain pregnant any longer. So they induced labor, and it was going to be, as many times when we're inducing a 34-week, pregnancy, it's a long, slow process. So the doula I was working on with this called me. She was out of town over the holidays, and she was in Florida. She called me up and said, "Oh my gosh, this client, I wasn't on my radar. I was not planning for this, not prepared for this, but she is going to be induced and probably have her baby before I get back into town. Can you meet up with her?" So it was, kind of early for that. I hadn't met her yet, and the prenatal preparation was not complete. But I happened to be doing a lactation internship at the hospital she was going to be induced at. So I was there frequently, and I said, "Yep, no problem. I will go and meet with her." And so after one of my lactation shifts, I went up to the labor and delivery floor, met with this client, amazing woman. I fell in love with her immediately. We spent a couple hours together and did some we quickly caught up on our prenatal preparation so that I could best serve her. Got to meet her and her partner and kind of help them navigate this process of, wow, things have just shifted. We're now having a baby. It's just before Christmas, and this baby's going to be going to the NICU, and how do we go about doing this induction in a nice, slow, gentle manner? And we kept in touch, and this induction started on a Wednesday evening. She had her baby on a Saturday morning. Sometimes inductions are like that. So her team was very patient with her. They did Cervidil, they did Cytotec for a long time. Just, cautiously, we talked about a Foley bulb, just to kind of coax her body into labor. And I visited her again the next day after my lactation shift. And finally, Saturday morning, they were ready. Things were kind of rocking and rolling. We kind of hit our stride finally, because the team was so patient. Her body kind of took off. And so I said Saturday morning, "Okay, we're ready for you. We're ready for that in-person continuous labor support," although we'd visited a few times and texted many times over the 3 days. So I joined them Saturday morning. This was Christmas Eve. And it pretty remarkable once I got there, or shortly after I got there, we had a great nurse who was a great advocate, and she understood what was important to this client and helped her with that. Some docs came in throughout the process, and we had good conversations with them, and we're getting as prepared as possible for what to expect when this baby was born. And then quite suddenly at 9, a doc came in to check in, and he found she was 10 centimeters, baby's at a +2, and mind you, this is going to be a pretty small baby at 34 weeks. Pushing began, and quite quickly the baby was here, and it all just went kind of fast at the end and was pretty joyous. And this client is a very joyous person. And it's pretty remarkable to have her meet her baby. She got a tiny little bit of skin to skin before the baby had to go to NICU, as was expected. And we pretty quickly shifted to lactation support because that was going to be very important to get this baby colostrum while I was in the NICU and breast milk while I was in the NICU. And the mom was very, very devoted and dedicated to that. So we started hand expressing and got a pumping routine going, got a hospital pump. And so she could take her baby, her colostrum and breast milk. She was discharged from the hospital, standard, a couple days later, and was going, of course, constantly, every day, recovering from childbirth and going to the NICU to visit her little baby, little girl. And we kept in close contact. We visited still. When I would do lactation visits, I would meet her at the hospital for, we'd fit a flange size and talked about milk production. This hospital had donor milk. She was using donor milk while her milk came in. And again, she was just wonderful to be with. I remember meeting with her in the hall, her and her partner. And her partner's the sweetest man, very kind and quiet, supportive, wonderful human being. And so we'd meet in the hall, and she has this awesome, larger than life personality, and was just, in this time in her life was so wonderful to everyone that she brushed, shoulders with in the hallway at the hospital and in the NICU, and just a wonderful person. It was fun to spend that time with her in the hospital. So we kept in contact. There was a lot of texting almost daily and some visits about, getting this baby breast milk. And here's where the story turns bitter. And I was shocked and devastated, and I only had a very small role in this story as an observer, and I had been texting her on Sunday. It was now New Year's Day, so this baby's 8 days old. We were texting about breastfeeding, and then I got a message a couple hours later that this woman had died. She was in the NICU visiting her baby, had a pulmonary embolism, collapsed right there in the NICU, and they worked on her for a long time to try to revive her and were unable to. So absolute shock for all involved, devastating. And that's the very sad part of this story. So now we have this father who a lot has happened, right? He was supposed to have a baby in February. He had a baby on Christmas Eve, and everything that entails. And now, quite suddenly, his wife died. Something that haunts me. I got a text from her, mostly about breast milk and pumping, just a few minutes before she died. And there's one line that kind of haunts me. She had talked about, I was trying to go from the car to the elevator to go to the NICU to see my baby, and I was so exhausted I couldn't even make it. And we had to get a wheelchair because I just couldn't get in. And later, in talking to the nurse that was there when it happened, she knew something was up, and she's like, you need to get some help. And this sweet mom said, no, I want to stay here with my baby. And, we know the result. It's devastating, very tragic. And this happens sometimes. And she got a pulmonary embolism, so a blood clot in her lungs, and it took her quite quickly. So this other doula and I, who are working with this client, wow, so glad we had each other for support, and it's not our place to get support from the partner, of course, but we were devastated in a different way than her family. I'd met her mom during the delivery, and of course her husband as well. And so we attended her funeral, which was incredible. I learned all the more what an incredible human being this woman was. And we created a unique relationship with this dad. And we offered him postpartum support. Wow, you find yourself in this space that's not anything you planned on. He had actually moved to the state just a year earlier when they got married. They'd met, and he moved away from his support system to North Carolina to be with her, marry and have a child. And now he's in this space doing it alone. So we met with him several times. He got a lot of support from his in-laws, of course, who were devastated and grieving in their own way. And as we met with him, he said, you know what? I want to fulfill my wife's goal of providing breast milk for this baby for the first year of her life. How can we do that? And so it was awesome to help in that role, reach out to people in the community and find breast milk for this baby who had lost her mother for the next year of her life. And it was awesome, the support that came. We would tell his story and, with his permission, of course, just a small version of his story as we sought out milk, supply of breast milk. And probably, 8 to 12 women we would get milk from in varying amounts. I learned a lot about how much milk there is out there in the world in some freezers, and some people could donate hundreds of ounces, some could donate 12 ounces, and it was just wonderful how supportive people were willing to be. And so that was really touching. And then we fast forward, and we met with this dad several times. He was sweet. He would take us to lunch, and we would meet with him and help him care for his baby. He came to my home a few times, and we got to meet up and become good friends in a different way. And what a remarkable human being he was, and what a sweet, sweet baby girl that was. So fast forward to March, and I had a client a person reach out to me who was seeking postpartum support. So I started doing some postpartum work with a family who had, they had a 2-year-old boy, and then they had twin boys. So this family had their hands full, and these twins, this is what is a sweet part of the story to me. These twins were born on New Year's Day, and that was the same day that this other mother had passed. So these twins were born that day. They were born prematurely at a different hospital in a nearby town. They had to spend some time in the NICU, and their mother pumped for them and got lots of milk. This is her second time breastfeeding, had a good experience before, had plenty of supply, and with twins had plenty more supply. And her postpartum support quickly changed also to lactation support, as I discovered she was dealing with oversupply, very overwhelmed, not with only, bringing twins home from the NICU, pumping, managing milk. Like, this woman had quite a project in her hands, taking care of newborn twins, a 2-year-old, managing her milk supply, which is pretty remarkable. I don't know if you know all the numbers about milk supply and intake that babies need, but she was, after feeding her twins, she was collecting and saving 100 ounces a day. That is phenomenal and a challenge. So that's basically enough to feed 6 babies. So she had a freezer full of milk, and our support turned to lactation, and she came into our clinic, worked with my mentor and myself about how to dial her supply back, which took some time and was a unique challenge, quite opposite than lack of supply or low supply challenges, but a challenge nonetheless. So I worked with her over a period of months to dial back her supply, where was getting only about an extra 8 to 10 ounces. And so I spoke with her about the situation of my other client, said, if you, feel so inclined or are willing, there's a place we can donate and use this milk for, a baby who can't get it any other way. And so she became a very main donor of milk for this little baby over the next many months. And the dad, I would help the dad pick up milk and deliver it to him, which is tricky, like getting milk from frozen, keeping it frozen cold, getting it somewhere else. And we lived, about an hour away. We would meet in different spots and bring coolers and find enough coolers. And that was kind of a unique challenge. And we couldn't just let it sit in a car. We had to hurry and deliver. So he would go to her home and pick up milk straight from her freezer. They lived a little closer to each other than I lived to either of them. And they developed a fun little relationship. And there's still plenty of milk that she has. I was in contact with her just the other day, and she still has a lot of milk to be working through. And what a gift to be able to share that. And on our Instagram we have a picture of these 3 little babies, the twin boys and the little girl, and we share it with permission, of course, from all of the parents. This little baby girl turned 1 just recently, a few days ago on Christmas Eve, and these 2 little boys in just a few days will turn 1 on New Year's Day. And I think it's been interesting to see how that story has unfolded and see the sweet parts about that, even among the tragedy that was very unexpected and difficult still, but to see the community support that came and see what a remarkable human that amazing father is, despite his tragedy and challenges. So that's just a little story that I'm thinking about at this time of year and wanted to share with you. And I do it, of course, with permission of all those involved. And I hope you can take that and let that be a positive thing in your life, that even amidst tragedy and trials and challenges, that there can be good things to look for. There are those silver linings of many of our situations, no matter how difficult. Thank you for being here with us today on the Ordinary Doula podcast. Visit our website, birthlearning.com, for more, and we hope to see you next time. I hope you are able to feel those silver linings in your life, that when challenges come, that you can look for the things that we can pull out that can be good or lessons learned. I hope to see you here next time. This is Angie Rosier with the Ordinary Doula podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Ordinary Doula podcast with Angie Rosier, hosted by Birth Learning. Episode credits will be in the show notes. Tune in next time as we continue to explore the many aspects of giving birth.